Good evening. This is Pastor Jeff. I'm in my office. I'll be going over to the sanctuary here in about 30 minutes to lead worship, but this is the sermon for July 27th, 2022. We do the second reading on Wednesday from what was on church on Sunday, which was Colossians chapter 2, verses 6 through 15, and also verses 16 through 19. So here we go. Good evening. Tonight we are in the third part of our four-part journey through Colossians. Tonight, we take an adventure into the second chapter. If you did not notice, the letter makes a turn towards a new direction. Prior to our reading tonight, the writer of Colossians has narrated four intersecting journeys. We have heard about the story of Christ, the story of creation, the story of the Colossians believers, and the story of the Apostle Paul. It's been quite a collection. All of these stories point to the gospel of Christ. The central theme for the gospel is reconciliation. This reconciliation is both for the church and all of creation. Now for the turn. In chapter 2, the writer invites the Colossian believers to inhabit their part of the story. He wants them to know and understand that they are to walk and live in Christ. Now, here is where some of this can get a little dicey. If they agree to walk and live in Christ, then that means that they have to reject the rival narrative. So what is that rival narrative? There is conflict that has been present in their community. It has been lurking below the surface this whole time, and now is coming to light. There were a group of individuals who were causing trouble in the church community. They were stirring up questions and was attempting to get the church to think that what Epaphras, their preacher, was doing was wrong. Paul steps in and says that those making those claims bring empty deceit. And more importantly, their teachings are not according to Christ. So Paul writes the letter, and he points to Christ and simply states, all you have to do is live into Christ. Be Christ-centered. He is attempting to convince them that what they need to do is rather simple. The church confesses, which we do every week, of Jesus as Messiah and Lord, is the ongoing basis for its life, behavior, and identity. So hear these words. Therefore, as you have received Jesus as Messiah and Lord, so walk in him. I think that it is very important for us to realize what Paul is wanting to communicate to the church in Colossae. The message that he is sharing with them is just as vital for us today. He wants them to understand that there is a natural relationship between the time that they first confessed Jesus as their Lord and their discipleship or their and our walk in him. I'm not sure about you, but this thought process is one of those areas that I wrestle with. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a few members of Bayview, and the conversation centered around work righteousness. And the passage that we are speaking of can lead us down that path if we're not careful. So I'm going to attempt to navigate these possible choppy waters. When individuals make the confession to Christ, we do not confess and then go looking for a new way to behave or please God. We are in a relationship. This is why Paul expands walking in him with metaphors. Some of the metaphor or language include being rooted and built up in him, being conformed in the faith, and abounding in thanksgiving. So here's where it can get a little dicey. Many times, individuals fall into the temptation of thinking that followers of Jesus who have greater Christian maturity consist of adding extra practices. So we point to individuals who are praying more, serving on mission boards, attending Bible studies, and we think, wow, that is real Christianity. And so we need to be extremely careful and cautious that we do not put opinions and even practices as the definition of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. For example, good Christians will not watch that Netflix series. Real Christians are Packers fans. True Christians are Lutheran. Great Christian parents have quiet children and send them to Christian schools. And the list can go on. Have fun coming up with your good Christian list. Now, we may giggle at this a bit, but it was a harsh reality for the Colossian church, and there were many battles of what constitute a real Christian in our society today. One of my colleagues in ministry, Joshua Jipp, he likes to use the military uniform as an illustration. When individuals take a look and see the pins and the stripes and the medals, they know immediately if they are looking at a person who is their subordinate or their superior. Now, Paul shares that there is no stripes or stars for the followers of Christ, even though I vividly remember my early years and attending Sunday school, and they would have those perfect Sunday school pins. And one of the saints received 50 years of perfect attendance. His suit jacket that day, with all 50 years, really stood out. But as Christians, we are simply clothed with the person of Christ. That's it. There are no superior or inferior ranks. Now, please understand me. The church and we as individuals can grow deeper in our knowledge and understanding of who Christ is, and I believe that is a good thing. But we need to know that nothing that we add to our faith will give us a superior standpoint over others. We can be assured that our identity simply rests in Christ. We are created in the image of Christ, and we are a child of God. Christ's identity is our identity. Thus, our identity is that we are in Christ, we belong to Christ, and we are with Christ. This passage, and in particular, the phrase walking, has profound baptismal meaning. It signifies that our baptism invokes this intense unity with the Messiah. In this relationship, God's wisdom empowers us to walk in a way of righteousness and allows us to live in alignment with paths of justice. It is my hope and prayer that by now, when you hear justice through the Lutheran lens, that you hear our promise and our baptismal vows, which we make, the promise that we will strive for justice and peace in all of the earth. May you be rooted in Christ and continue to walk with him. And remember that when we are crucified with the Messiah in baptism, we strip off our old dirty clothes and put on new clothes, the clothes of Christ. God's peace.